This is the second half of the show. Johnson Chukwu, the Chief Executive Officer at Cowry Asset Management, is joining me right here. Just before I went on a break, Johnson Chukwu is now a chief. He was given the chieftaincy title just this holiday. And let me tell you, congratulations, Chief Chukwu.
You're not serious. Okay,
welcome.
Good at you. We were meant to give it a chieftain before I was given. So I also salute you, Chief Nancy.
So welcome to our league.
Yes,
welcome to the league. You're the newest member of our league. All right, welcome and good to have you on the program. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, my sister.
How was your holiday?
Well, it was fun-filled. Like you said, my people honored me during the December season, and it was a lot of activities. It was something they did to appreciate some of the few things we've done to impact on the society. Among the things we did was we attracted NDDC to do the road leading to the community, and then we also helped them get electricity supply, and as well as built a maternity ward for the hospital. There's a couple of things we've done to intervene in improving the welfare and well-being of citizens. So it was a fun-filled period for us. And
I heard you didn't want to receive it initially. No. Just like when I was also told, I think in 2018, I vehemently refused. My husband was like, no, you're going to take it. My dad was like, you will take it. I said, okay. When the two men have spoken, you know.
No, mine was interesting. I've been under pressure from my community and neighboring communities, including my wife's community, to take a chieftaincy, to accept the chieftaincy. Yes. And I consistently insisted I don't want a chieftaincy. But this time around, my community, as a body, came together and insisted that I'm their son and I must accept this. Because they felt that nobody has actually contributed as much as God has helped us to do in improving the standard of living of the community. If you go to the community today, it used to be a very rural community. My community is called Ugweke. But today, if you go there, I mean, some of my friends that came say, your place is urbanized. I was laughing because today they have all the basic amenities. They have broadband internet services. I mean, you have data services, courtesy of some of our interventions to bring the telco companies to set up in their mass in the village. We have stable power. So we had stable power supply during Christmas, and then I have very good well-paved road with road markings. So they felt that they insisted, and after a lot of design, I mean, it was towards the end of November, I accepted that, okay, since I'm your subject, and then I have to be subject to your authority, and that's what happened. Okay.
Now, so you had a very jolly end of year.
Oh, yes, yes. And thank you, one of your colleagues was there to cover the event.
Yes.
And I'm sure he enjoyed himself.
Yes, he told me, he gave me a report back, of course. So we were represented. Moneyline with Nancy was represented.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, it would have been a disappointment if they didn't see any Moneyline from Nancy, with Nancy.
Okay, taking from what we're discussing now, for Nigeria, do you think it will be a happy 2020? As everyone is saying, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Will it really be a happy 2020 economically? That's for the economy.
My take is that the 2020 economically will be better than 2019. I believe the economy will grow at a faster rate than it did in 2019. I also believe that more job opportunities will be created in 2020. And I can tell you the premise on which those assumptions are based. One is that last year was hobbled, first half of last year was hobbled by political activities. So you realize that the first 6 months to the first 7 months of 2019 was principally dominated by political activities. So minimal economic activities were going on, new investment were not taking place, investors were watching the political risk, and therefore they rather stayed on the fence. This year, that political uncertainty has been lifted off the shoulders of the country. Second factor is that last year, interest rates on fixed income instruments was quite high, which made it difficult for banks to lend or private sector operators to borrow. And also there was low supply of credit. The policy of the central bank towards the end of last year has led to the unleashing of credit into the economy, both the increase in loan-to-deposit ratio to 60% and then later 65%, the insistence by the central bank that private sector operators should no longer buy open market operation bills. That also pushed liquidity to the credit market. We've seen a drastic drop in interest rate. I mean, at the last TV's auction, T-bills, 364-day bills, were sold at about less than 6%. And what has happened is lending rate has come down, which will create opportunity for real sector operators to go and borrow. Those factors combined should lead to faster growth in the economy, assuming there is no disruption. And at least at a minimum, one does not expect political activities to start this year. So on
but
the
you're already
score
seeing
of
politicking somehow.
Yeah,
which zone or which zone. I don't want to get into that, but you're seeing those echoes around.
Yeah, people will be flying the kites, but I mean, political activity in the context of it, I mean, INEC is not going to flag off any process of a national election in 2020. So I think absence of political uncertainty, lower interest rates, improvement in availability of credit should impact positively on the economy. I believe we should have a growth rate that may actually surpass the budgeted growth rate in the federal government budget of 2.93%.
What's your forecast?
I believe we should do more than 3% this year. My estimate is between 3 and 3.5%.
Really? Even though the World Bank is saying about 2.1% for us.
Yeah, you know the World Bank report is revised almost every month.
Yeah.
So I believe as they watch the economic environment unfold, they are likely going to come back to revise it.
So you're even more optimistic than the government itself?
Currently, I'm more optimistic than the government.
Based on all what you've just talked
Absolutely.
about? So
and I think you need to know this now so that we can review it at the end of the year. Because
yes, I'm always certain
we'll do.
Yes, you're always saying that most times when I interview at early in the year. So 3 to 3.5%. Let's note that down, guys. I'm talking to my crew. I'll take Johnson Chukwu up in December or January next year, as the case may be. Now, you talked about, the LDR, which we've seen that the central bank has told the banks to do. So we're seeing credit conditions improve, as it were. But aren't you worried also about risks of defaults?
Basic thing that happens is that a couple of factors lead to credit defaults in an economy. There are issues that have to do with the macroeconomic environment, and they also have to do with the economics of the individual firms, the micro issues which could lead to poor management, poor product selection, low demand. But then if you look at the macroeconomic factors, low interest rates in any environment reduces the likelihood of their loan default, because higher interest rate makes it difficult for people to earn enough income from the investment they borrowed to do as to cover the interest payment. So lower interest rate environment will naturally reduce the incidence of non-performing loans. 2, if the economy is growing at a faster rate, it will create economic opportunities. It creates opportunity for companies to generate higher revenue and higher profit levels. So I think at the macro level, the factor that impede the quality of credit may have moderated. At the micro level, which you have to look at the individual firms and the credit quality, the process of credit advancement of the individual financial institutions. Those are the areas that should be of concern. I believe the banks must have to strengthen their credit approval process. They've been compelled by the new loan-to-deposit ratio to expand their target market. While that expansion could also mean that they have included in their target market subprime customers, those customers that are subject to higher level of credit risk. They need to strengthen their monitoring process. They need to strengthen the process of approvals. So if they do those things, particularly the monitoring, they will be in a better position to manage the fallout of the expanded loan-to-credit ratio. But given all things being equal, a higher loan-to-deposit ratio will lead to higher incidence of non-performing loans. Because like I said, you are compelled to include.
And you're still trying to reel out from it, but because I think the last time it's falling from 15% to 9%, I think.
Yes.
Yes, that's talking about NPLs.
There's non-performing loans.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 factors are actually accounted for that. One is that there's been some level of workout. There've been improvements in some credits. But the major factor is that the increase in the denominator, which is the volume of credits, have actually moderated the ratio of non-performing loans to total loans. It's very simple. If you have a total loan, non-performing loans of 100 million, for instance, and your loan book was 1 billion, then your non-performing loan to total loan was 10%. But if your loan book grows to 2 billion, and you still have 100 million non-performing loans, that means your non-performing has not increased, you're going to have a non-performing loan to total loans of 5%, which will give an illusion that quality of credit has improved. It's not necessarily that quality of credit has improved, but because you have actually expanded your credit volume, the impact of the non-performing loans have moderated. So those two factors, you have some workers and recoveries, and you also have to deal with the fact that you had and the sharp increase in volume of loans available, advanced to customers, which led to the moderation from our 15% to about 9%. The key thing is, are we really working out those loans? Are we recovering them, which should be the focus of the banks.
Okay. Now, what sweeteners can the government add to the existing pie right now to attract investors into the country to build a strong economy? Or should the government just bake a new pie? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Well, a couple of things the government can do. Most importantly is to improve the economic environment, the investment environment. You have the soft issues, I have the hard issues. But let's start from the hard issues. The issue of infrastructure, which is on the lips of most business operators. Two critical infrastructure supply that are in short supply are power supply and transport infrastructure. On the power supply, the government is coming, NEC is coming up with a revised tariff. I hope that revised tariff will dovetail into improvement in power supply. Because if it does not, it becomes double whammy, double jeopardy for the business operators. You pay higher tariff and you still don't get power supply. But one of the challenges we had with the power supply was because the power reform program failed to achieve commercial viability. Because the generation companies, the distribution companies are not recovering enough from their power sales to pay for power supply. And because they are not earning enough to pay for power supply, they are short of meeting their commitment liabilities to power suppliers. And for that reason, the generation companies, the bulk trader, is not able to pay because the distribution companies pay to the bulk trader. The bulk trader has to pay to the GenCos, generation companies. The generation companies are not getting enough from the power they supply to the bulk, to the national grid. And for that reason, the GenCos are also not in a position to pay for gas supply. So the gas suppliers, the oil companies, the independent oil, international companies, are not incentivized to supply gas to the generation company. So it becomes a self-fulfilling failure value chain. But hopefully with the increased tariff, these costs have to do other things, which means they have to improve the average, reduce the average collection and commercial losses. If they don't do that, then the effect of the additional tariff will not be realized. And to reduce the collection losses and commercial losses, they have to issue of the metering have to be addressed. But that's the issue of power supply. We need to address that. Then on the issue of transport infrastructure, which is the available road network, the quality of the road network, the rail networks, and the air transport infrastructure. I believe the government needs to bring in private capital to build transport infrastructure. The model of building infrastructure from budgetary allocation seems to not likely to achieve the ultimate objective within this limited time that we have as a country. It's not that we don't have, when they say in the long run all of us are dead. But if we really need to build infrastructure, we need to review the model of building infrastructure. Budgetary allocation will not address that. I think those two soft issues, the hard issues. Then you look at the soft issues. What of the legal environment? What the commercial environment? What are the regulatory environments? Some of the ad hoc regulations that are coming out, the government needs to moderate that. Take, for instance, the issue of border closure. I know that we all know that it was an ad hoc measure, but it has dragged on for too long. There are people who brought in their goods through the land borders. Who imported through Benin Republic or Togo. They paid the appropriate tariffs. They were not trying to smuggle their goods in. And then their goods got stocked at the borders. They are bearing costs, and then there's no timeline to lift that embargo or the restriction on border closure. So we need to be more systematic in our policy formulation and implementation.
That brings me to, since you're talking about being systematic, that brings me to the kind of development plan we have to have in the country. It's 2020 already. Vision 2020. I remember when Vision 2020 was moved. I don't know. The document was really worked on. We also had at the time Vision 2010. Is it during Abacha days or so? Vision 2010, then Vision 2020. Hooray! 2020 has come. We're still where we are. The ELGP is also there, which is also supposed to inspire. So what kind of development plan should we put together now that will really build a strong economy, which we all hope for?
Well, I will take it from two perspectives. One is development plan, two is implementation. The problem we have is not necessarily because we have not come up with very interesting, very robust development plans. It's because successive governments tend to discard whatever they inherited as it relates to a plan. Take, for instance, the issue of Vision 2020, which was meant to ensure Nigeria became among the
top 20
country economies by 2020. Today, we are in the top 30 economies in the world. And if we had taken further measures, maybe we would have achieved that objective. But immediately that Obasanjo's 2020 plan, immediately his tenure ended. The year that government that came in had about, is it 7 or 9 point agenda?
7-point agenda.
7-point agenda. Then as he left, Jonathan had his own economic blueprint. And then...
I think Jonathan was 7-point agenda also.
No, Jonathan reduced the number of agenda items from either 9 or 7 to
I think 9 to 7, I think, yeah.
Then, under the Buhari government, we have the economic recovery
growth plan.
and growth plan. So, but the best thing is some of those policies are now observed, or plans are observed in abeyance. The key thing is that if you have a plan, I don't know whether we're going to get to the point of legislating these national development plans so that successive government must consider it as an existing law that must be implemented. That's the bane of our policy planning. The other aspects that the policies or the plans must be holistic and integrated. And I always say, look, if you have to have a national economic plan, the first thing you have to ask yourself, how do we want to position the economy? For a country of large population, you should position the economy as a productive economy, not a service-oriented economy. So you must build an economy that can produce goods and services, because that's the only way you can create employment for that teeming population. A small country like United Arab Emirates, like Singapore, those countries are modeled after service industry because they don't have the size of human capital in terms of numbers as to be an industrial base. China was right in modeling its economy as a productive economy, because that's the only way we can create employment. With a 200 million population, we must be a productive economy. If you must be a productive economy, you also must have infrastructural supply at a high level of efficiency and lower cost. So which means our transport infrastructure must be efficient and must be cheap to use. Our energy infrastructure must be efficient and must be cheap to use, so that you end up building an environment that will be a cost-effective production base. That's the only way both locals and foreigners will set up manufacturing outfits in your country. Once you do that, it will tie into your educational policies. You must have an educational policy, a curriculum that will churn out the skills that will provide labor to those industries you want to set up.
Now, the Economic Advisory Council, how far? Bismarck Rewani, Doyin Salami, Professor Chukwu Soludo, President Buhari constituted the Economic Advisory Council in September, inaugurated them in October. Nothing seems to be happening. I think he met with them that October. Nothing. You're smiling. I know some of them are your friends. Was it November? So I also spoke to Bismarck Rewani on the phone and all of that. But nothing is happening. Tell me, there's nothing happening. It's like same old. Or what's happening, the government, the federal government or the president right now, which of course the president said they should report to him, they can meet him anytime. Nothing is happening. No. President, have you forgotten that you created the EAC? I don't know.
Well, if you look at the president's New Year's speech, he made mention of the Economic Advisory Council. You know, interestingly, I wouldn't know if nothing is happening or something is happening.
If something is happening, we will know.
The Advisory Council meetings are not public, are not of public nature. The advice that they give to the president are also not of public nature. Whether the advice they've been given to the president is now being transmitted to the agencies of government, or they have actually met, or they have given advices to the president and the president accepted or rejected advice, we wouldn't know. But the key thing is this: if in the next 1 year we do not see material improvement in the economic environment, one could say that either they have not been advising the president, or the president has not been taking the advice, or the agencies of government that are supposed to implement those advice, because some of the concerns are expressed at one of our meetings here is that, look, they don't have executive powers. The best they can do is advise. And when you give advice, the person you give advice has the options to accept or reject the advice. But not only that the person has the option of accepting or rejecting the advice, there's also a third layer, which means the advice you will give will either be fiscally oriented or monetarily oriented. If it's fiscally oriented, it has to be transmitted to the Minister of Finance. It's still a choice of the Minister of Finance to accept it wholeheartedly, wholly, or partially,
but
or
she
reject.
will if it's because the advice will come from the President. If the President agrees to what the EAC says and tells the Minister of Finance to do, she will do it.
You know, it's advice. And let me play devil's advocate. Let's assume the Economic Advisory Council said, look, we need to attract investment to the country. We need to create a tax haven within the environment. So we want you to reduce the corporate tax rate to 10%, not implement an increase in value-added tax. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. And then the president accepts that and passes on to the minister. The minister could come to the president and say, sir, this advice would have been very good if our economy is more advanced. If we do this, we are dead because we would not have income to pay salaries.
Perhaps she will come to the president with data. Yeah. So this and that.
So at that point, the president will not take that position of the minister back to the advisory council and say, what do you need to do? Because it's not an iterative process. So it will be, okay, minister, consider what you're doing. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. So if the advice of the advisory council is completely at variance with the opinions and views of the minister, then it will be difficult to implement.
Okay, one last question because we have to go. What global factors are topmost worries for you right now? If you take it, that's for our own local economy rather. You take a look at Iran-US. Iran contributes, I think, about 4% of global oil production, 13% of global oil reserves. It produces, I think, about 4 million barrels per day. US and China trade tensions on one side, then our own local economic challenges. So which are topmost worries for you?
Okay, at the global level, the greatest risk with the world is facing today is the disruptive capacity of Donald Trump. He seems to be like a bull in a China shop. I mean, we move from Mexico to China, from China to Iran, and you don't know where next he's going to hit. I was reading an article today, and they said that even the advice that was given to him by the Pentagon, the issue of killing the Iranian general was one of the extreme options, but that's the one he took.
He took the extreme option.
So the greatest risk to the global economy is what could Donald Trump do the next minute? And remember, this is an election year. The man could do things that are irrational, hoping that will whip up sentiment in America so that he could be elected. At the local level, if the government can continue to moderate the level of insecurity, both in the Northeast, North Central, and South, we should have a good economy in 2020.
I don't even want to say regional security now. In terms of, in some places, Nigeria needs security everywhere. Everywhere we need to be safe, you know. So it's not just a matter of Boko Haram, Northeast or Northwest or whatever. It's security everywhere. Thank you very much.